Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Thanks for joining me today. In this video, we're going to discuss what it looks like when a nation falls apart. Not the most happy of subjects, but it's an important one for us to discuss in light of the changes we are seeing internationally in the economic world, inflation, and also wars and rumors of wars. And how does this portend for us here in the United States? That's really the question that we need to look at. The best predictor of the future is the past. And for our discussion today, I'm going to be referencing the debate on the Constitution, which has in the totality of it, the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers. We need to reference these because these are important historical documents, but they also give us a window into what our founders anticipated for us. And they certainly didn't see us as one monolithic entity stamped as Americans here in the United States. That's for sure and certain. So, as we've seen over the recent weeks, inflation, consumer prices, and the overall experience of the consumer is definitely not in a positive trend. A lot of people are paying an awful lot of money for things that just a few months ago and even just a few weeks ago were affordable, and now things are becoming more and more problematic as far as making the ends meet and the bottom line, particularly for people who are on a fixed income. In the United States, we have been blessed historically with relative ease of living post-World War II. But if you're wondering what it looks like when a nation falls apart, you're looking at it right now. And this is just with the economics that we've talked about. But what I really want to focus on here is the impact of the Supreme Court and also the major shifts in what we deem as foundational principles and the basis of all civilization, which is the nuclear family. So everything has to do with family. If you want a cohesive nation, you have to have a cohesive family. And in a nation where we can't determine what a woman is and what a man is, and where people are so confused that they don't know which bathroom to use, it's little wonder that we can't figure out what it means to be a people. And I would submit that our founding fathers perhaps maybe could not have put in their mind such a horrid display of what things are as far as confusion with basic biology. But they certainly understood economics, and they understood the nature of the rise and fall of empires, and certainly how economics interplays with that. So the Anti-Federalists in particular, who I definitely lean more towards as far as I think they were correct. I think they were definitely understood history more than the Federalists. I think the Federalists had, particularly when it comes to Alexander Hamilton, an obsessive fixation with strong central government, because ultimately they had a completely different view of what humanity's capabilities and tendencies were. And so when you look at the Anti-Federalists warned us, even during the debates on the Constitution, that this nation, A, was not a monolithic entity, B, that different parts of the country were going to have competing interests, and C, no central government could adequately represent all these disparate peoples, nor could these central governments that would arise based on past evidence in history, these central governments cannot equally safeguard the rights of the peoples in disparate areas, particularly when it comes to urban versus rural concerns. So when you're looking at the news right now, these issues, these schisms between Federalists and Anti-Federalists, between rural versus urban, all of these things are problematic now because they have always been problematic for human beings. What we're seeing now, though, is a new level of moral depravity to which this nation has sunk. Particularly with the things that we are deeming acceptable and laudable. When you have makeup companies advertising on television that 100% of their products are inclusive, this isn't because they're purely debased. This is because they're recognizing that there's a 50% market share that they have not exploited, and they're trying to improve their market share by expanding their product reach to the remaining half of the population who don't usually use their services. The economics are part of this equation. Greed is always part of the equation because greed is something that human beings deal with. But what we're seeing now, particularly with some of the issues with the Supreme Court returning the issue particularly of abortion back to the states, this isn't some kind of surprise. If we were to consult the founders, particularly Anti-Federalists, they reckoned that this was going to happen. And for that reason, they put into the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the 10th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment is basically, if it's not explicitly granted as a direct power to the federal government, then it belongs to the people or to the states. So what we're seeing here is a reversion back, if the Supreme Court puts abortion back to the states. It's a reversion back to the original framework of limitations of federal power that the Constitution provides. But the fact that people are screaming and whining over a perceived inability to slaughter infants, that tells you where we're at. The issues that people are discussing do not hinge around constitutionality. They hinge around the right of a woman to slaughter an infant. But I would submit to you that there's a lot more going on than this. Everything has to do with the family. The fact that we see the ability to murder the innocent as a hallmark of whether or not we've made progress, to me, I'm looking at this and like, that is not progress, that is regression. Like, we are reverting back to the days of child sacrifice. That is what it looks like when a nation falls apart. I have to ask the question here, and maybe you can answer this. Leave me a comment below. Do you think that the foundational structure of civilization is the nuclear family? Is it? I personally can't think of anything else that is. Everything goes down to its most simplistic form. And a human being's most simplistic organizational structure is the nuclear family. Without a nuclear family, we have no basis for building anything larger as far as associations of peoples, whether it's tribes or towns or groups of association. Everything depends on having a functioning nuclear family. And we can't even agree on what that is. Even if we can agree on it, we don't seem to be able to hold it together. And there's no judgment here. I'm just looking at the facts in front of us. We have all of the associated little entanglements that are showing us right now that our nation is falling apart. Is it any wonder that we're having financial issues if we can't even look in the mirror and say, I am a man, I am a woman? That's hate speech now, apparently. Biology became hate speech. So which science it is that we trust, frankly, depends upon the politics of that associated person purveying the science. This world is turning. So in times of uncertainty, looking at where we're at now, and looking at what the Anti-Federalists talked about, when they talked about places, for instance, in the nation, the coast would not have the same interests as the plains and as the interior because people make their living different ways. I wonder if they could imagine the depravity of the people in the time in which we live now. Part of me wonders, I don't know, what do you think? Do you think that they could foresee how degraded we'd become in basic interactions? Perhaps so. I don't know. I would like to think that when they gave us this Constitution, that they knew history, and that obviously they did, but I'm wondering if in the balance of history, if they knew that their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren would be in a time where public bathrooms would be a confusing question to answer. This is what it looks like when a nation falls apart. Nobody has any surety of anything, and that's reflected even in our economics. We can't even have basic assurances that our children are going to go to a school, for which we're taxed, by the way, that our children are going to go to a school and not come back completely brainwashed and reprogrammed. Or maybe that's the goal. It is, if you believe the narrative of the Fabian socialists, which you could say that they're getting their way now, for sure. But this is what it looks like when you have no economic certainty, when you have no certainty on the basic functionality of the nuclear family, when you have no certainty about these two basic things, what your money is and what your identity is as a human being, there's no path forward for the future. So people ask me all the time, like, what do you think is going to happen, Patriot Nurse? I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. The United States is going to balkanize. And I am not sorry about it. People say, well, how could you call yourself a patriot? I'll tell you exactly why. Because my allegiance is to principle, and every true American should have allegiance to principle. Without principle, we have no geography. This nation was founded, if you believe the narratives, which I obviously do, because I believe this part of what they wrote. This nation was founded to be a city on a hill and a lighthouse. We were founded to have principles, not to be an empire, and not to be a place where every manner of frivolity was celebrated and every manner of wickedness was held up and lauded as something to be proud of. I'm not sure that we are compatible with the vision that our founders were hoping for. Going back to limited government, to smaller government, and to governments that represent the people with certain non-negotiables, which is a constitutional republic, that's the only hope for the future. And I've said this in the past, friends, I'll say it again. There is no hope in the vehicle of the federal government. I don't have any confidence whatsoever that presidential elections are going to fix anything. I don't have any confidence whatsoever that sending anyone to DC to do anything whatsoever is going to net a solid benefit for individual rights and for freedom in this nation. It is sick and cancerous. And eventually, when we balkanize and when we break up, my hope is that the local and state governments will offer people a better chance at retaining more of their rights. There are certain parts of the country, obviously, that hate freedom. Look at it with the gun laws. How much money do you keep that's yours? And are you able to defend yourself? That's really the rubric here of freedom. And when you look at different parts of the country, there are clear winners when it comes to that. So the sooner that we get to the core principles of what this nation was founded on, the better. And that is, obviously, individual rights are sacrosanct. But now we have devolved to the place and time where individual rights are who can you sleep with, who can you murder, and what can you steal. And until we have a complete 180, I don't have any confidence in our ability to have a happy future. My confidence, though, is in God, because I know that from the beginning of time, He has known this moment for you and me. And He knows His people in this time. He knows their futures. Nothing comes as a surprise to Him. Nothing. And so, looking forward into the future, I don't see the United States in the scriptures anywhere. I'm sorry to make people feel uncomfortable here, but we are not guaranteed as a right of existence. You don't find that anywhere in the scripture. What you do find is the enduring love of God and His promises to His people and His covenants that are unbreakable. So for me, that's where my confidence is. My confidence in the future is not in peachy times for the United States as a whole. My confidence is in God. And I believe that wherever His people are in this world, whether they're in the United States or anywhere else or different parts of the United States, in the deepest, darkest pit of horrid cesspools like DC and Baltimore and San Francisco, or they're in the woodlands of the interior or the mountains of the Ozarks, wherever it is, God's people and His covenant is going to triumph, even if this nation, as we know it, ceases to exist. I hope that was helpful for you today. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you'll subscribe to me here on YouTube, Patriot Nurse. Folks, being prepared in times like this is very, very important, because at a bare minimum, you want to make sure that you can take care of your family. You want to make sure that your needs are covered. And if your needs are covered, then it allows you to be a blessing and a vehicle for encouraging people in horrible times. So beans, bolts, and Band-Aids, as we've talked about before, these are the areas that you need to focus on in your preparedness, not just in supplies, but in skills as well. If you'd like to train with me, you have two options. For the medical arena, which is what I specialize in, you can train with me online. It's 4 hours, it's $129, and the link is down below. If you want to come and train with me in person and get networked together with like-minded people in your area, some of the best people on the face of the planet, come and take a class with me in person. The full schedule is at the website, thepatriotnurse.com. Next month, I'm going to Kalispell, Montana, going to be in Knoxville, Tennessee, Phoenix, Arizona, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and also Keller, Texas, friends. Make sure you check that out at the website and make training a priority. Even if you don't train with me, I want you to get trained. I hope it was helpful for y'all. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later.